Hi guys, Allard here with a new video update. This is the new Dark Magician build for, the post-ban list. Do apologise to those poor people who are running combo decks, Manadium, etc. who now have lost their two Synchro monsters, while Snake Eyes are still got their basically at full power. They just needed to change out the Link 1. Sounds super fair, right? Totally legit. So anyway, here's my deck. 2 Dark Magician. Ooh, boy. 2 Illusion of Chaos. 1 Timaeus. 3 Magician's Souls. 1 Magician's Rod. 2 Kashtira Unicorn. 2 Kashtira Fenrir. 2 Nibiru the Primal Being. 2 DD Crow. Choosing DD Crow over Bestials, even though I do prefer the Bestials. DD Crow will banish basically anything, whereas the Bestials, they are just basically banish a light or a dark. So with this, that'll get rid of Princess and a few other cards that they'll put naturally into the graveyard to bring back. So if they try to bring back Flamberg, you can just use DD Crow, get rid of it. If they try to put IP Masquerina back from the graveyard to the Spell and Trap card zone, you can use it to banish it. They summon Princess, you can send it to the graveyard, you can use DD Crow to banish it basically. And it's not once per turn either, so I've put 2 in, but feel free to, your ratios, and you can use it to, add 3 if you like. 1 Ash Blossom, though I honestly probably would advise perhaps using 2 or 3 in this current format. 1 Effect Veiler, it's good, and I appreciate where people are coming from. Has a lot of synergy with Dark Magician being a spellcaster itself, being a light type as well, as opposed to a dark. It kind of helps a little bit as well if you're wanting to special summon. Say for instance, if you do use Bestials, you can, activate this to negate an effect, then banish your own Effect Veiler to bring out Magnum or Druid's Worm or something, that kind of thing, onto the spells. So Magician's Salvation, 2 Soul Servant. I'm finding 3 these days, regardless of what build I'm using, is just a bit bricky in that I never use 3. So, kind of point. 1 Dark Magical Circle. Basically, I usually run 2, would never advise running 3 unless you're kind of like just playing with friends and you just, for fun. 2, I was finding that my goals for what I'm wanting to either set up Dragoon, Mirror Jade, or something like that. So the Dark Magician Triangle just kind of doesn't really come into it anymore. 1 Secrets of Dark Magic, because I just don't see any point in adding 2. It's not a great card, but it's what we have. I agree with Loza on this, 150%. 2 Preparation of Rites. I usually run 3, but there's the Droll thing, which isn't great, and I had to choose a card to fit some of the other cards in to keep it down to 40, so I had to just basically get rid of 1 prep. 2 Talents, because this current format, everybody insists on using Draw, Ash, using the monsters during your turn, so it makes cards like this and Thrust, even though I don't have Thrust yet, makes them more viable. 1 Terraforming, because unlike Master Duel, the TCG hasn't banned it, thank God. 2 Super Polymerization, because these will help you in pretty much any deck that you're facing off against. 1 Cold by the Grave, to basically deal with Droll or Ash or whatever that you need to get rid of even Princess, or, you know, if they're activating a certain card on the field's effect and they've got one in the graveyard, you can use Call By to basically banish it and negate the effect. 2 Forbidden Droplet. I do quite like this card, though it kind of only really helps if you're going first and they're wanting to, you know, build off, or if you're going second and you've got quite a few cards in your hand and you need to negate something. 1 Instant Fusion, I'll explain that in my extra deck, but it's basically there for a starter. 1 Lightning Storm, because, you know, Labyrinth is still a thing, and the Snake Eyes like to set a lot of their disruptions right at the back, so in the spell and trap card zone, so that's just good to start off with, just to kind of, you know, get rid of those, you know, either attack position monsters or those cards in the back row. Now on to the traps. 2 Eternal Soul, 2 Imperm. You can use 3. I probably would advise using 3. I just prefer to use 2 because I'm just trying to keep everything to a 40 card minimum. Now on to the extra deck. 2 Dragoon, because it's our boy. 1 Master of Chaos, because I've got a few light cards in there, including Effect Veiler and Timaeus. There are some other hand traps out there that you can use. I think that level 1 or level 3 psychic monster that brings out a normal psychic monster when you activate it to negate an effect. I believe that's a light type. Ghost Ogre's a light type. So if you're using any of those cards, this might be a good thing to have. And then you can just banish a light and a dark, even itself, to banish your opponent's monsters. 1 Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight. Because, you know what, I'm trying to keep as many Dark Magician cards in here as humanly possible. The Dark Magicians, which I find I end up using in my test hands more than I use Dark Magician the Dragon Knight, either because I've already set up Dragoon, or I've set something else up, or my hand is so poor that I only have, say, Effect Veiler and Dark Magician Girl in my hand, and Dark Magic Feud, if I can remember its name. God, that's great as a Dark Magician player, not remember your only spell card that fusion summons and ritual summons, isn't it? Here, Secrets of Dark Magic. So you end up with like Effect Veiler or something, and Dark Magician Girl. Although Secrets of Dark Magic is quite handy if you've summoned Rod, or you're using Magician Soul's effect. They try to imperm your Effect Veiler. You can activate that if you've got Dark Magician Girl or Dark Magician in your hand at the time. In a special summon, the Dark Magicians will waste their negate. And you still get that effect resolved, so you can still get to draw a card, or Rod's case, you get to add the card to your hand. Now, in relation to Instant Fusion, that's the card I was referring to. Not only is it a good starter, but its effect, if this is on the field, your opponent activates an effect of an effect monster, you can then negate it and steal it. And then you can obviously then just, you know, normal summon another monster or whatever, and then go into a Link 2 and then start Link climbing if you need to. Guardian Chimera, because that allows you to pop on draw. So super poly targets, I'm using 1 Garura of the Wings of Resonant Life, and 1 Mud Dragon of the Swamp. Now I was at some point using 2 Garura, which if you've got them, you might want to think about doing, because things like certain decks, like say for instance Labyrinth or the Dark Magician players, for the majority of Snake Eyes, it's fire, pyro, that kind of thing. So it's quite easy to use, and once that gets sent to the graveyard, even though you can only use that effect once per turn, it will then allow you to draw that extra card. One Curse Angel, because luckily that hasn't been banned yet. And in this build, because I was having issues with previous tests regarding Borrow Load and getting a link into the graveyard, because obviously it's a Dark Magician place, we don't, spam the field with a million different monsters. So it's not so easy for us to get a link, then someone Borrow Load and then attach that link just to get a negate. So I decided to use this, which is so much easier for us to get. It's good. One thing you need to take into consideration with this, you might be thinking it only works on level 5 and higher effect monsters. No, the negate itself, the negate effect itself that negates and destroys, works on any monster that activates its in effect. You can use that once per turn, mind, but it negates any monster. The only time it comes into level 5 or higher is when you're claiming that monster's attack to increase that from 3,000 to whatever it would be. So just bear that in mind. This is actually really good. It's generic. It's a dragon type. So if we waste that negate, we have Dark Magician in hand and, say for instance, Secrets of Dark Magic. You can use that negate to negate a card, then use that if you've got another card in your hand to special summon Dragoon, and then you'll have another negate. So just things to take into consideration when you're doing it. Onto the links now. I've got Relinquish Anima, which again I use in conjunction with this. So because Instant Fusion destroys it at the end of the turn, you're going to use this or Thousand Eye Restrict. I do have both. I was debating which one, but this one seems the most likely since people insist on using cards like SP Little Knight. So deactivate SP, because this is on field, you use this, negates effect, steal it, then link off into Relinquish Anima, sending their SP Little Knight to the graveyard, kind of ruining that for them. The Dark Charmer Gloomy, because people insist on spamming SP Little Knight. So SP Little Knight is a dark type, so if you use Super Poly or whatever to get that monster into the graveyard, you can then link off into Dark to then bring that from the graveyard, use that effect, I believe, and then you can link off again into Selene and then into Access Code. Now you can choose whatever you want. What might be a good idea if you do have a better build than I do is to use things like IP into Appaloosa, making it difficult for your opponent to use their effect monsters. Or what I was contemplating was, is it Avramax or Avramax? I have it. It's that Link level 4 Crusadia card. That's pretty good. And considering most people special summon these days, it's really good against their monsters they attack. They can't really beat over it. So, one Nib token to go with my Nibiru's. And for the extra deck, because Droll is an issue, I'm running Branded. Yes, I appreciate it's Brain Dead Fusion. But here's the side deck. One Mirror Jade, one Lobelian, one Albion, two Fallen of Albaz, one Blazing Cartesia, three Branded Fusion, DMG because it's not in my deck. So you're going to swap and change these depending on who you're facing. If you're dealing with like a friendlier duelist or something, you might want to slip DMG in there, just for the whole anime thing. But Necrofusion, I do quite like this card. I'm putting it in as one because I've got other cards in my extra deck. And that if you're playing on a more competitive level, you're going to prefer the Necrofusion. But I find this kind of helps It helps when I'm running cards like DPE, because if they ash my Destiny Fusion, well, it's already sent it to the graveyard. You put Necrofusion down if it's in your hand. Next turn, you can then flip that over, banish the 2 cards, and then bring out DPE. Or, if they're messing around, and you say they negate your... this actually happened to me on Omega. The person negated my Albion. I had Dark Magician and Albaz in the graveyard. I set Necrofusion, had a couple of cards in my hand, and then next when it went to their turn, I activated Necrofusion to bring out Dragoon, and they rage quitted. It happens. One Secret Village of the Spellcasters. The reason why I'm running 1 right now, as opposed to 2 or possibly even 3, is because everybody in the goddamn universe is using Diabell Star. So it's not really of any use to us anymore. And because things like Super Heavy Samurai, Snake Eyes themselves are predominantly monster effects, so Secret Village really isn't helping us a lot. It helps against matches like Pearly and Sky Striker and things, but it's not really going to help you against Snake Eyes or Super Heavy Samurai, because they're not set on their spells getting them anything. And then because this is probably the biggest pain to everybody in Yu-Gi-Oh, but I would advise it. It's not expensive, so if you can afford it, triple evenly matched. It's not banned. It's probably not gonna get banned. And with like Baron gone and Boral Load, the easiest Omni negates there that are made by non-Dark Magician decks, this is very, very handy, because the cards that people like Snake Eyes and whatnot use is usually Appaloosa, and she can't negate spells or traps, so this card. And Appaloosa is the reason why I'm also using double Forbidden Droplet. Again, can't negate spells, bring it down, start doing your combos, etc. Or if you're a Dark Magician players, bring out Rod, get the circle set up, the triangle. Right, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. And I'll now move on to some test hands. So here are the test hands, guys. So I'm just gonna, mix my cards up a little bit. And bearing in mind, this is like Strawberry Shortcake land, so when I start making tests, you got to assume that, they're not gonna ash you straight away, or they're not gonna, use Droll or 3 different imperms, or, they're not gonna totally like decimate your hand. Any kind of weird Dark World combo or anything that's gonna totally screw you over. I'm absolutely trash at shuffling, which is why some people end up with better hands using the same deck as me. So let's have a look. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this is great going second, but we're pretending we're going first. This really doesn't get us much. So you start with Rod. You're going to get Circle to see what we can get, because basically anything else is either going to approach to the top of the deck or be of no use. Activate Circle to draw, to look at the top 3 cards, and then you're going to put them in whatever order. Now I would probably advise doing that, because it gets you a starter. Now there are these 3 cards that do come in handy, so you then set Imperm down in a column not attached to this, and then you just have a link off into Artemis, but I'm not using Artemis, so link off into Artemis, so when they activate an effect, you activate Trap, get rid of Artemis and get your rod back. Probably might have been a smarter idea for me, but anyway, you've got your Imperm down, you got Nibiru in hand, DD Crow. So they start pulling off all the combos, get Prince in the graveyard, you activate this, and then after you've got rid of Princess, you then activate this to just totally decimate their what's on their side of the field. And please do it before they try and get open Appaloosa, unless you use that on Appaloosa. What's also good when you put this in a column, in the pendulum column, which I would always advise, is you get to negate, and if they're using pendulum monsters, such as, I believe Super Heavy Samurai have some pendulum monsters, and obviously pendulum decks use pendulum cards, it prevents them from pendulum summoning, because it kind of blocks off that row, so they can't start pendulum summoning, see? Always a reason behind the things that you do. So it's not just always about outplaying your opponent, it's also about outsmarting your opponent and not just assuming they run certain things. So again, top 5 cards again. So okay, as you can see, this is what we have. So you would summon Rod, again pretending we're not getting ashed, even though if we did, we'd just use that to draw 2. I would then get Salvation, shuffle, activate Salvation, get Eternal Soul here, so that'll be face down but just showing you for this purpose. Then activate Circle, and look at top 3 cards of your hand. So I'm going to add that to my hand, and that's going to be next. So you'll want to go Super Poly and then Cold Boy if you survive. Now with these cards again, you'll be setting this card, and you got these 3 cards in your hand. So it's not really going to do much, but you know, next turn you might be able to do something. Okay, just one more. They're not doing very good test hands, but I'm sure you'll probably have a better luck than I do. So this is just kind of like asking to be ashed, really, isn't it? So terrible, but still, DD Crow, Nibiru seem to come into my hand quite a lot, and this. So you would activate this. To get you this. You're then going to activate this. To set this. You're then going to set this. Now, this is good because what this means is you have this in your hand to banish, this in your hand to wipe out pretty much everything that they special summon, and this to negate this, to negate a monster effect, and you can also send this to prevent them using any kind of spells to negate it, so you can target 2 monsters, and then use this to special summon this at the end of their turn. Makes sense, right? And our next card would then be this, which allows us to draw Circle, and then we can start doing a load of other things if they end up destroying that, blah blah blah. Right, and that's for it for my test hands. Not the greatest of test hands. Not seen any Dragoons, but you know, these things do happen. I will do some test hands regarding this later on, and I hope you enjoy it. Bye!